Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is a long overdue tag. I was tagged by Book Songs and Other Magic, Gareth, who will be linked below, in this book name tag back in July, I believe. This tag was originally created by Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. Each prompt is inspired by a YouTuber's name, which I think is super creative, and also their content style, which is very cool. All right, so prompt number 1 is inspired by books I'm not reading, and that is a book that has been on your TBR forever. Okay, so I actually realized how many, what kind of books have been on my TBR forever, the ones I physically own, because I reorganized my shelves. If you want to see my bookshelf tour series, I'll link it below. I realized that all the books that I haven't read in forever that I own are all mostly nonfiction or historical fiction or stuff like that. So there are 2 different books that I would consider being on my TBR forever. The one is one that I don't own yet, but that I've wanted to read forever, and that is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Everyone's scared of this book. I get it. I've seen pictures of the inside, but I really want to read it. I really want to at least try. And the second one of the books I own is The Girl with 7 Names, Escape from North Korea by Hyeonseo Lee. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is a memoir of Hyeonseo's escape from North Korea, and I love this kind of stories about parts of the world that I'm not familiar with. It's snowing outside. Oh my gosh, first day of snow. I might go out for a walk later. Okay, never mind. This one. Prompt number 2 is inspired by a novel idea, and that is a book with an interesting premise or plot device. Okay, so I've talked about this book on my channel before, and I have never seen this premise ever anywhere else, and I think it's very cool and super creative. The book I think could have been a little bit better, but that is Break by Hannah Muskowitz. Mostly I enjoyed this book. 1 or 2 things to say, but the premise is the main character has some internal issues, and he decides that he's going to become the strongest version of himself, literally, because he decides he's going to break every single bone in his body. And there's 300 and something bones in your body? Or 200, I can't remember. But anyway, prompt number 3 is inspired by Revenant Reads. Name a book where a character comes back from the dead. Okay, so there's a problem with this prompt, because the only books I can think of where that happens, that is the plot twist. So I don't think I can safely name any where that happens. The only one I can think of, metaphorically, this one, because let's be real, Johnny basically comes back from the dead. If you know, you know. It is the story of a soldier during World War I who wakes up and rediscovers his body. He wakes up in the hospital. That's not a spoiler. You figured that out fairly quickly, but he might as well have been dead. Let's be real. So this is kind of like a cheating, bending the prompt, but you know what? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Did I have to refilm because I accidentally read the first part of a prompt and the second part of another prompt? I don't know, why would you think that? And the next prompt is inspired by Criminale, a book where a crime takes place. This one, well, I actually read a few books where a crime takes place recently, but the one that really sticks out is Consumed by Cronenberg. I love this book so much. It is so creepy. David Cronenberg has a problem. If you have seen his filmography, even other than his book. Okay, anyway, but I love him. I love him nonetheless. So Consumed, you follow 2 main characters who are a couple, and they are photographic journalists. Yes, photographic journalists. There is a crime of a major person at the beginning of the book, and one of the two decides to follow the crime, the other is doing his own thing, but you kind of follow their stories and discover how their quests interlock, if you will. I don't know if that was the right choice of words, but it is so creepy, so interesting. This book is not for the faint of heart. If you're queasy at all about literally anything, it's sort of body horror, I would say. So maybe stay away from that if you don't want to read about that. But my goodness, if you like David Cronenberg's filmography, yes. And also, I think what I really liked about this is that because the author was a movie director, I think his way of explaining the scenes and kind of describing what's happening, like physically, is different. I thought it was more vivid than your typical author. So I really enjoyed that. Next prompt is Book Time with Elvis, and that is a book about time, time travel, or someone named Elvis. I don't think I've read any book where someone is named Elvis. To be honest, I cannot think of any book that is about time or time travel off the top of my head. I've kind of, the only one I could cite is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, but I feel like that's kind of like an easy answer. Also, I read it for high school, so it's kind of like, it was business, not pleasure, you know what I mean? So, but I really liked it, and actually, I have it right here. The Time Machine. I do remember really liking it, though I don't remember specifically what it's about. I'm gonna go with the easy answer here, The Time Machine. Next one is middle of the book March, and that is your favorite book that you read in March. So what did I read? See, the thing is, in March, I had a pretty somewhat major reading slump. It always seems to happen around the same time of the year. That is a recurrent problem, but anyway, I do think I read Killer by Peter Tompkin, which was the only book I read in March. So I'm gonna go with Killer by Peter Tompkin. Yes, it wasn't really my favorite nor my least favorite. It was by default both and neither. Next up we have Book Buds, and that is a book, a book with a great friendship. For this one, oh my gosh, this one is such a cozy feel-good book, and that is Jedi Summer with a Magnetic Kid by John Bowden. I got this in a Nightworms box, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. It's a short book, it's very easy to read, and it's about two brothers who are in this small town, and you basically follow them during their summer. And they're two kids. I think I looked at my book review when I was looking for books that for this prompt. And in my book review, I cited one of my favorite lines in the book, which was, I think it was like, growing up is a rotten thing to do to someone, or I may be paraphrasing, but that's the vibe of the book, and I love it so much. It's your typical like kids having cool adventures during the summer. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it takes place during the 80s or 70s maybe, but there's a lot of pop culture references to cool rock bands and cool movies that were out at the time, and it's just super fun, and the friendship between the two brothers is amazing, so I do recommend that. Okay, so the next prompt is Obscure Book Adventures, and that is a book that you love that never gets talked about. Okay, this is partially my fault because I also have never spoken about this book, and if it has been spoken about, I certainly haven't seen it personally. That may be the case. That is Naomi's Room by Jonathan Aycliffe. I love this book. I think it's a paperback from hell, I may be mistaken, but it is the story of Naomi's parents, and Naomi's like a child, I forget how old she is, maybe 10 or so, and she is discovered dead at the beginning of the book, and you follow Naomi's parents kind of coping with that and finding out that their house, specifically Naomi's bedroom, may or may not be haunted, and it's a creepy haunting story. I really loved it. It does get a little dark at the end, but definitely recommend that one. Okay, and our second to last prompt is by Savage Reads, and that is a book with a monster or beast or human acting monstrous or beastly. Okay. I rarely read monster type stuff. I could have mentioned Killer by Peter Tompkin earlier, but upon thinking, which I do sometimes, I remembered Perfume by Patrick Suskind. I loved this book so much. So it takes place in 17th century Paris, and it is the story of Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, who is like the unwanted child. He was a prostitute's son. He was in an orphanage. He was ugly, whatever. But the one thing he does have is an amazing sense of smell. And so you follow him growing up and pursuing a career in perfumery, and also he falls into this really demented mindset of creating perfumes for certain purposes with certain ingredients. And I don't want to say more because I want to leave you the pleasure of discovering this book because it is incredible. And our last prompt is a book that fits your own channel name or the name of the channel that you love, of a channel that you love. Okay. So I could go at both ways with this because, as you may or may not know, I recently changed my channel name. It used to be Bookbound Weirdo, and I changed it to Cafe Cryptic. If I had to pick a book that mostly represents my channel, I could only think of one or two, because the first one I thought of was the Amityville Horror, because that is the book that got me back into reading a decade ago, almost. That is depressing. Aren't we getting old? Yes, we are. Anyway, so that would have been Amityville Horror, but the one that I read super recently, can't talk about it enough because this was like, I fell head over heels for this book, and that is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I almost said Stanislas Cordova. And the reason I think this best describes my channel is because this book, first of all, is a horror-ish book. Horror book. And I love horror. And also, some of the main characters are related to the movie industry. I love cinema. Night film, hello. What is wrong with watching a movie at night? Nothing. What's interesting is I was recently browsing YouTube for book reviews of Night Film, and I fell upon one. I forget her channel name, but I will put it on screen. She did not like Night Film at all. And I was like, oh no, she doesn't like my favorite book. And then I listened to her review and I was like, yeah, kind of. But it doesn't take my love for Night Film. Okay, the characters are imperfect. Our main character, Scott McGrath, is kind of an idiot. I will agree to that, and that is kind of an understatement. But you know what? I'll link her review below, and you can watch both of our reviews and make up your mind, because I think both are relevant, and I think it's really interesting to see two completely different opinions of the same book. All right, so I will tag some people in the description. I first want to check if they've done the tag before or not. Let me know your thoughts on this below. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.